Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni has threatened Kenya with a potential war if Kenya continues to privatize access to the sea. This man right here, he doesn't play. Why? Because he's a war man. He's been at war for many years. Matter of fact, for his entire youth, the man was at war. So if he says things about war, you must take him very seriously because he's not playing. Ugandan president says if Kenya continues to be quickie and funny about access to the sea, there could be war in the future. And Kenyans are not very happy. Listen to what Museveni said.
Why don't you see how to unite? Because Uganda, even if you wanted to build a navy, how can you build it? We don't have access to the sea. The political organization in Africa is so irrational. Some of the countries have no access to the sea. For economic purposes, but also for defense purposes, you are stuck.
You hear him say we can't even build a navy. You cannot build a navy because we don't have access to the sea. Look at the map. You see the map? This is Uganda, this is Kenya, and this is the sea. He said we cannot build a navy because we don't have access to the sea. Continue.
How do I export my products? That's why we have got endless discussion with Kenya, then this one stops, then another one comes, then the railway, the pipeline, the what, we discuss. But that ocean belongs to me. Because where is my ocean? I'm entitled to that ocean. In future, we are going to have wars.
Okay, so we heard what the president of Uganda said. He said there could potentially be war in the future because of access to the sea. And obviously, many Kenyans are very angry about that. Like, how can he say that? Why is he threatening us? How about he comes just now so we can go? You know, black people are always ready when it comes to war. You know, they're never afraid. Yeah, you can come over. But do we really want to see this war? Let's try to see if Mr. Museveni is right. Does he raise interesting questions? I think this is very important. We really don't want to see Kenya and Uganda go at war, but let's see what this is about. Who is right? Who is wrong? President Museveni compared the situation to living on a block of flats, like you live on the second floor and the person at the bottom says that the ground floor belongs to him. And anything going through the ground floor, you have to pay him a percentage for it to go into your house. So if you have a pizza from Uber, coming to your house and it has to go through the ground floor and the ground floor say you need to pay me a percentage of your pizza for you to get it. Does it make sense or not? Let's find out about this. The question is very simple. Why does Uganda need access to the sea? Uganda need access to the sea because Uganda relies heavily on Kenyan ports like Mombasa and Lamu. You see on the map, this is Mombasa, this is Lamu. Sometimes on Tanzania. Why do they need this? They need this for imports such as petroleum, cement, iron, steel, and manufactured goods. Look at Uganda on the map. It's a landlocked country. Landlocked just means a country inside the continent. They don't have direct touch to the sea. They have to rely on their neighbors' gratitude and grace to access the sea. And Uganda is tired of that. This is a problem because when things come to Uganda, they have to pay some sort of a tax or levy or stuff like that when they go past countries next to the sea. We're talking about Kenya and Tanzania. And sometimes when Uganda want to export things, they have to negotiate with Kenya and Tanzania on how it's going to go. When it's going to go, what's money going to be paid to who? So Uganda is tired. It's very similar, like Museveni said. I live in a second floor, and every time I have a delivery, you have to take something because you said the ground floor belongs to you. I'm going to give you a practical example. Let's say a container ship come from Asia to Mombasa, okay? It costs maybe $2,000. Now, moving the same container from Mombasa to Kampala is the capital of Uganda, can add $1,500 to $2,000. Now, the container coming from Asia to Mombasa costs $2,000. From Mombasa to Kampala costs $2,000. No. What does that mean? So sometimes Uganda has to pay equal the amount of the import. So if Uganda was Kenya, Ugandans will only have to pay $2,000. Because Uganda is not Kenya, they have to pay $2,000 at the port and another $2,000 to go to Uganda. Now, what is the law about this? What does the law say about this? There's an international law where the countries came together at the United Nations to decide on how things are going to proceed. The law is very simple. It's called the United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea, or the UNCLOS. Under this law, oceans are considered global commons, but coastal states control their territorial waters and port. In other words, oceans is for everybody, but coastal states like Kenya, Tanzania, Mozambique, and others control a little bit of the sea. Therefore, the people inside inland don't control nothing, and that's a problem. And we're going to see why this is a problem. This is a problem because inland countries have to negotiate with coastal countries on how to access their good and send their good out. I mean, Uganda was trying to export petroleum. They have discovered a large amount of petroleum, but in order to get the petroleum out of the country, they had to negotiate with either Kenya or Tanzania. Now imagine if there's unrest in Tanzania, then Uganda has to stop and wait for Tanzania processes, and that slows down everybody. This law was adopted in 1982 after nearly a decade of negotiation. Between 1973 to 1982, they negotiated, then they came up with something. It came into force in 1994. Okay, once all of the countries ratified it, everybody accepted the law. Say, okay, from now on, inland countries have to negotiate with coastal countries to access the sea. Now, you must ask yourself a question. Why was this law adopted? Why is it important? They adopted the law to prevent conflicts over fishing, seabed mining, and shipping route. They wanted to create some sort of order. You know, not everybody can just go anywhere and start fishing, and you know what I mean? You need to have order. What belongs to who? Now, let's dive a little bit more into this law. The law says this: all waters at 12 miles coastal distance, 12 miles, which is equated to 19 kilometers, from the port into the sea belongs to the country at the coastal place. Meaning Kenya's water 12 miles into the sea or 19 kilometers into the sea belongs to Kenya. So only Kenya has the right to fish, mine, and do other things. Any aeroplanes, any ship, or anything that passes through 19 kilometers of the water has to get permission from Kenya. Are we together? Now, there's what we call the EEZ, Exclusive Economic Zone, okay? It's 200 nautical miles from the coast inside the sea. 200 nautical miles is about 370 kilometers in the ocean. That side does not belong, but it is controlled by Kenya. So only Kenya has the right to mine, to get petroleum, gas, and fish. Any other country, however, can navigate freely. Aeroplanes can fly, they don't need permission. Ships and boats can traverse with no problem. So we have two sides. One is 19 kilometers from the coast. The other one is 370 kilometers from the coast. Beyond 317 kilometers from the coast, it belongs to nobody. No single country owns it. No, anybody can go over there and do whatever they want. Are we together? So what is Museveni really saying? Museveni is really saying he's tired, okay? He's tired of having to ask for consultation from Kenya or Tanzania to access to the sea. He said it's madness for coastal states to claim exclusive ownership of the ocean, and essentially arguing that landlocked countries like Uganda should have a shared right to the Indian Ocean. So in other words, Uganda shouldn't have to pay, okay, fees and levies and taxes and stuff like that for them to have things coming from China or Asia or anything. Because obviously it costs more money for the Ugandan person. From the time they ship it from Asia to Mombasa, it maybe costs 2,000. But by the time you get it to Kampala, it costs 4,000. Why? Because you have to pay the import fees and the ships and the levies and the toll gates and stuff like that. It gets crazy. What's the alternative? The alternative would be Uganda to open its own side of the port, access to the sea, where they can look into their own things, they can process their own goods and go directly into Uganda. What does that mean? Suppressing the processing that would come from the Kenyan side. Museveni said that Uganda shouldn't have to beg Kenya or Tanzania for access to global trade route. Does that make sense? So let's understand this very well. Now, United Nations has made a provision that countries that are landlocked should have free access to the sea. It's their right to access the sea. But whatever happens with accessing the sea in terms of finances, the country at the coastal side has the right. So even though the landlocked country has the rights to get to the sea, they have to live by the rules of the country at the coastal side. In other words, the country at the coast has the right to ask for whatever money they want from you in order for you to export your goods or import any good. Do you think Museveni has a point or not? We clearly don't want to see African countries fight each other. I mean, this is very similar situation with what we see between the IES. You know, the IES, these countries here, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger, and ECOWAS. These are ECOWAS. These are IES. These are ECOWAS. Okay? So IES, they pulled away from ECOWAS. Why? Because they didn't want to work with the French anymore. And they felt like ECOWAS was being manipulated by the French. Obviously, they get funding coming from the European Union. IAS, Mali, Burkina Faso, and Niger are these three countries that want sovereignty. They want to promote Africans people. They want to get the money drip down to the poor African, not the multinationals and international companies. Now, ECOWAS is still subdued to Europeans as per the IOS. They feel like these Africans are house niggers. These other Africans are house niggers. So IOS don't want to deal with them anymore. You know what happened after IOS kicked out the French? Well, ECOWAS blocked them access to the sea. Yes, they refuse to let them access to the sea. The sea is very important for import and export. It's very necessary for the economy. You need tablets, you need medicine, you need food, you need cement, you need infrastructure. You need the sea to import your things. There are two ways to do it, via aeroplane or via the sea. Via aeroplanes, it's very complicated because you have a limited amount of goods that you can bring at one shot and it costs a lot of money. By the sea, it's much easier. You can take a ship and load in as much stuff as you like. And it's going to take longer, but it's eventually going to get to destination. So the sea is very important for the economy of any country. Now, ECOWAS blocked IOS from accessing the sea because IOS said they didn't want to deal with the French anymore. As a punishment, guess what happened next? This country right here, Morocco. Morocco said you can access the sea via me. ECOWAS used to go through Cote d'Ivoire, Ghana, Togo, Benin, and other countries. They blocked them. Well, Cote d'Ivoire, Togo, Ghana, Benin are very dark skin like you. They blocked IOS. IOS are also black skin like you. Guess who helped them? Moroccans. Look at the Moroccans. You see them? They look different, right? You see, that's why I said to you, brotherhood has nothing to do with skin color. Yes, Morocco said you can use this. You can forget about them because they're holding a grudge against you. They want to suffocate your economy. They want to show you that you took a wrong decision by kicking out the French. They want to punish you. You can use our port to export. So even though IOS has the rights to access the sea by law, the countries by the coast have been given the power to charge them with levies and stuff like that. Is this correct? President Museveni did not say he's going to war. He said that this could potentially create wars in the future. Is he wrong or right for saying that? Let me know how you feel about this. It was a great pleasure. Do you think inland countries should have access to the sea without having to pay any money to no coastal country? Just like a person living in the second floor of a building doesn't have to pay the ground floor person to access his pizza from Uber Drive. Let me know how you feel about this. It's Uber Eats, right? It's always a great pleasure. God bless.